Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. You know I love doing art journal work. I like making art journals. I like painting in them. I use stencils, I use stamps, but nothing gives me more joy and pleasure than to know that I made this stamp from scratch. Nobody else has it like these. They are my very own. So let's get started and have some fun making our own stamps. You need foam sheets. I got these on Amazon. They're not that expensive. They're nice and soft, lightweight, and pliable. One side has a paper sheet that protects the adhesive. So you have to flip it over to the other side to draw your design and then cut it out. And you will also need corrugated plastic artboard. You can get these in Staples, possibly in the dollar store, I'm not sure, but for sure art stores and Staples has them. This gives us a firm support to glue these foam pad shapes onto them. And I'm going to start with a foam sheet and show you how to make the hardest ones first. I'm drawing on the foam sheet with a pencil. You could use a pen. And make sure you don't have your fingernails in the way because they can actually indent the surface of that foam. So keep them back and try to just use the tips of your fingers when you do have to touch the foam. So I'm just drawing a random shape, a squiggly shape. I like these a lot. And then I'm going to cut it out. There's a good way and a harder way to cut it out. So I've got my mat, which is a thick, dense board. When you use an Exacto knife, you can slice through your sponge sheet and not go through to your tabletop. But I do not recommend this technique for beginners because I don't really love using Exacto knives even myself. And I'm trying to show you an easier way to do this. So actually using crafting scissors will work. Make sure they're sharp, make sure they're clean and not full of goopy glue. And I was a pattern maker and fashion designer my entire career, so I love cutting out. I'm good at it. I just get a lot of pleasure in the mindfulness of just cutting out shapes. It just gives me a lot of joy. I started off normal speed, but now no matter how good I am, I did speed this up, so I'm not that impressive after all. Anyway, you get the idea. It's a lot easier to cut them out with scissors. It's safer. You don't have a chance of slicing your finger off like you do with an Exacto knife. The only thing is you have to keep the shape simple. Later on, I will show you a more difficult version, and that's a little bit harder. So if you're a beginner, keep the shape simple like this one, and you should be fine. I don't throw any of the scraps out. I'll show you what you can do with those. So this is a fun shape. The one I did there, it's dangerous because now you've got those inside loops that have to be cut out. You can't do it with the scissors. It's too finicky. You have to use the Exacto knife. Anyway, I cut out all those centers with an Exacto knife, and then I glued it all down to the corrugated board. But stick with something simple for now until you get really good at it. All those inner shapes that I used the Exacto knife for, I kept them and I glued them down and made another stamp. And even the squiggly leftovers from this one I just showed you, I keep those as well because you can use them, you can just glue them down, maybe change it slightly, but there's no point in wasting them. They make good stamps. So again, these are the more difficult ones, but try and stay away from that if you're a beginner. I really don't want you to cut yourself with an Exacto knife. I do like them. They give a different impression, but again, until you're ready for that, stick with something easy. I've got these ones here that I've made with parallel narrow lines. They're 1/8 of an inch thick, and I'll show you why I do them so thin. There is a nice grooved area on a safe place on the Exacto knife to put your finger when you're pressing down. Never touch the tip of the blade. I've got my foam sheet and I've found the straight lines, and I'm just eyeballing approximately 1/8 of an inch thick strips. I'm going to do several of those. I'll tell you why when I maneuver them, why I'm doing 1/8 of an inch and not wider. Always put that away, right away, that Exacto knife. I hate having something sharp near me. And scissors are okay when you're doing short little snips like this, but if you want long, straight, parallel lines, you're best to use an Exacto knife. It's also very quick. I'm going to make an extra board to show you how I press those strips down. But at first I'm going to show you how I can cut a strip to make that stamp I made on the left needs a backing so that it makes it more like a block to hold on to when I'm stamping. So I'm slicing away a strip that's smaller than the piece on the left, and I'll put this extra one aside until later. Always put that Exacto knife away. Some of them come, if you're buying a single one, they come with a blade protector. Always put that on the moment you're finished using it. So here I have my previously made stamp, and I've got a backing. I'm going to use a few strips of my double-sided tape. After you do this quite often, you'll find that you get a lot of sticky, goopy glue on your craft scissors, so it doesn't hurt every once in a while to take it to the sink, put some soap on there, scrape all that glue off, and start from scratch with a nice clean blade. It does come off when you're cutting these adhesive two-sided tapes. It definitely comes off onto the scissors after a while. Press really firmly with your fingers and then pull off that protective paper from the double-sided tape. And then press that board backing onto the back of your stamp. Now we have a platform there to hold on to. It's like having a block. If you buy wooden blocks, again, rubber blocks with a wooden base, that's something that you can hold on to. So I'm just mimicking that. So I've got a bunch here that are made with narrow strips. And as you can see, I'm doing some circles and some loop-de-loos. And it's easier when you've got narrower strips. And it's really hard to take that and cut that shape out with scissors and then cut the inner part of the circle. It's way easier to do it with narrow strips, and I will show you that after I show you how to cut these apart. I decided I didn't want two circles on the same board, because what if I want to just stamp one circle at a time? So I'm going to slice down the middle. It's going to take a little while because this is a double-backed stamp now, so I have to do several efforts. Don't try and do it all in one slice because it's very hard to do when it's so thick. So just keep going over and over, going deeper and deeper till eventually it breaks apart. Sometimes you have to stop and just press down and then slice across. Just be mindful of your fingertips, please. These are dangerous tools. I give that a crack so that it'll show the back side, and it's easier for me to just turn it on its back, give one quick slice, and I've separated them. So I'm really happy I separated them. They're both different, so it's kind of nice to have them separate. So now I've got all these ones that are made with narrow strips, and I'll show you why it's good to keep it narrow. If I was to use a 1/4 inch wide strips, it would be harder to turn corners and make nice rounded corners there. So I'm going to keep it to 1/8 of an inch. In that case, I stopped and started with strips. This time I'm going to show you how to do it with one continuous strip. Even though we'll have more, you'll see there's seams there on the circle, and that can't be avoided because I've made it with a strip. But if you butt those ends close together, so that's where I started right there. I'm pressing down with my fingertip. When I get around to the other side, I want to, when I'm applying the strip, when you get to the end there, make sure that they're butted up nice and tight so that it looks like one continuous strip. Hopefully once you use paint and stamp with it a few times, the paint will fill in that gap and you'll never know there was a seam. Those other two there I made with slightly wider strips, but I'm going to show you right now how I made the circled one there. So take off that backing all the way off. Now we're going to just press gently at first until we have the shape that we want. I'm going to go quite close to the edge of the board, and I give it a start. And again, always use your fingertips, the soft part of your fingertips, not the fingernail. Now you can press just lightly at first until you turn the corner. When I get to the end there, I'm going to press down with my fingertip, again the soft part of the fingertip. I'm going to press a few times as I'm turning so that I can get a nice tight turn. If I was to do this with a wider tape, it wouldn't turn so easily. So that's why I'm sticking with 1/8 of an inch wide strips. Now again, I'm trying to be a little bit parallel, but not completely. This is very organic. I want it to be intuitive. I don't want it to be perfect. I think that makes a more interesting stamp. Again, keep pressing in a few spots as I turn that corner, keeping a nice rounded edge. Now when I add the next piece, you're going to want to butt that end of it really close together, push it against each other, and guide it so that it's nice and tight. Try not to use your fingernails, and then press down firmly. And again, hopefully after you've used this at least once with paint, it will fill in that gap and you'll never know that this wasn't one long continuous strip. You'll get better at it and quicker at it once you've got the hang of it. I didn't want that to bend there, and so I'm trying to just gently guide it to a straight point there. Not point, but a straight end. And then again, butt this up. Before you press it down, butt it up, then press it down. Now press the corners. You get the hang of it. You couldn't possibly cut this out with an Exacto knife into the foam sheet in a better way than this. You just do strips and make it shaped like this. It's really the best way to do it, and the safest. One more. Again, butt those ends up nice and tight. Make it so that it doesn't look like there's a seam at all. And hopefully that'll work. I haven't done this before. I'm hoping that it will just work. And now the last one, I don't mind that it didn't go all the way. I kind of like that. And eventually what I did later is I cut about a ½ inch off the back side of that board. I'm pressing down, but not actually, even though it looked like it, I was not using my fingertips, my fingernails. So I did cut away the bottom. And what I did too is I cut a smaller piece on the backing. And you saw how I did that backing, so I've just set that aside for now, but I showed you already how to do that. So look at the stash I have. I have all these amazing stamps for endless hours and days, and hopefully even years of fun. In this case, with those shapes, I took a knife and sliced gently some lines and stripes and plaids, and then I took a pencil tip, and I poked holes so that I give texture. And I hope that will show up once I put paint on there and stamp it onto tissue. Thanks for watching how I make homemade stamps. Watch the next video where I show you how to use these to print tissue paper.